Hello everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Are you ready to tackle another fun block in Kimberbell's Candy Corn Quilt Shop project? Let's do it. Today you have built your skills up, so we are going to tackle this fabric shelf block. Look how cute this is. Now don't worry about the bolts of fabric right now. That's an add-on accessory that we'll be doing toward the end of this project, and we'll be adding them on at the end. So right now we're going to stitch the quilting behind this, and we're going to stitch the shelf and all these other little sections of fabric that are built in with the thread and this kind of like a jelly roll. We're going to stitch all that out, and we'll leave the accessories to the end. So you can do this. You have been building your skills up through this entire project, building upon each and every block that's given you now the skills to do this block. You got this. You got this, no problem, but I will still walk you through step by step how to do this, but you can do it. It has the same techniques as the other blocks. It just looks a little bit more complicated, but it isn't. It's really going to be fun. I'll walk you through it. So go ahead and grab your plastic pouch system or plastic bag system that is labeled fabric shelves. Go over to your machine and I'll meet you over there. Let's do this. All right, we are at the machine. Is everybody ready to get started on the fabric shelves? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to load the design on the machine. Just for reference, I have a Brother Dream machine, so you can kind of follow along if you have a machine similar to this. So I'm going to click on Embroidery. I'm going to go to my flash drive because that's where I have the files stored. And I'm going to go to Candy Corn. And then I have all the quilting designs in a quilting subfolder. So we're going to stitch the quilting design first, like we have in the rest of the blocks of this series. So hopefully you've been following along and watching the other videos. So we're going to add the quilting design first. So if you're looking at the Kimberbell instructions, go to page 18 and 19. And on page 19, underneath trimming instructions, we are looking for the finished square block size. And it says that we're going to square the finished block at the end to 6.5 by 10.5. That tells me the size of the quilting design that I need to pull in. So if it's going to be 6.5 by 10.5, I need to bring in a 6 by 10 inch design. If you pick the size that's just slightly smaller than the squared block size, then all of the quilting will fit nicely underneath the applique, and none of it will be cut off on the edges. So again, the finished block is 6.5 by 10.5. So I brought in a 6 by 10 design. It's showing me on the top that yes, 6.5 by 10.5 will be the actual stitch round, which will be this outer stitch line, which is perfect. So let's click set. That's going to be cute. Let's click add, because now we're going to add the applique design on top. And if your machine can't do this, that's okay. We'll go to Candy Corn. You can just stitch the quilting design first, and then clear your machine memory, and then come back and stitch the applique design. Not a problem. So we're going to go main quilt. And now we're looking for the fabric shelf block, which is way down here. Let's click on that. Oh, that's going to be cute. I love the fabric. That's going to be adorable. Okay, click set. We don't need to bring in anything. And so we're ready to go. We're going to click embroidery. But one quick note, I'm going to quilt this in white because if you notice, most of this quilting design is going to be covered by the shelf. There's only going to be a little bit peeking out here. So I'm just going to use white thread when I do the quilting, so it'll just kind of blend in. This fabric shelf applique is going to take up most of the block. So we're just going to have a little bit peeking out. So I'm just going to use white thread to make it blend. Okay, so let's click embroidery. And we are ready to go. So let's go over to the hoop cam. There we go. And I have gone ahead and put a piece of poly no-show mesh, which is a lightweight cutaway stabilizer, into my 8x12 hoop. If you have a 6x10 hoop, you can definitely use it on this block. If you don't, and you have a 5x7, there's going to be double hooping instructions found on the CD. I won't be demonstrating the double hooping in this project, but I will in a future. But if you have a 6x10 hoop, you can use that as well. You don't have to use the 8x12. But because my dream machine didn't come with a 6x10, the next size up for me is an 8x12. Okay, again, if you need a 5x7, don't worry, just reference the CD. And Kimberbell's instructions are really good. They'll walk you through how to do a double hooping. Also, I believe there's Kimberbell instructional videos as well on their website or YouTube done by Kimberbell that will show you how to do a double hooping as well. All right, so we're ready to go. I am going to put white thread in the top of the machine because we're going to stitch out the placement line for the batting. You ready to go? Let's go. Okay, so now we're going to lay the batting down. All right, this is going to be a very close fit. All right, we can do it. Okay, so there's the batting. I'm going to lay that down, and we're going to hold it down, and we're going to stitch it down. I'm very, very close, and I'm going to move it up just a smidge. There we go. Okay, we ready? Let's go. All right, so that was a little close, but we did it. So now let's take this over to the table, and we want to trim away all this excess batting. Okay, that trimmed up nicely. So now I've got the hoop back on the machine, and now we're going to stitch out the placement line for the fabric. So I can continue to use white thread in the top of the machine, foot down, and let's stitch it out. All right, so now we're going to lay down the fabric, and it doesn't have to be exact because we have plenty of fabric on the top and the bottom. So just make sure that you cover those placement lines, and you can see and feel by the batting as well as to where it's going to be on each side, so we have plenty of fabric. And let's put the foot down and tack down the fabric. That looks good. All right, you ready for one of my favorite parts? We are going to stitch out the quilting stitches. So I am going to do this in white, like I mentioned earlier, because the fabric shelf is going to take the majority of this. So I just want to have a little bit of white quilting popping out on the side. I'm not going to do anything dramatic. I'm just going to do blend on blend. So white thread on the top of the machine. Let's stitch this out. Now in real life, this is about a 10-minute stitch out. So sit back and relax and foot down and ready to go. Let's stitch out the quilting. All right, that looks so pretty. Okay, we ready for the next step? All right, we are going to be working on the back panel placement line, which is going to be black fabric. So let's put black thread up on the top of the machine. Okay, you got black thread up on top. All right, let's stitch out the placement line for the fabric shelf. It's going to start to come together. This little stray thread right there. All right, so now you need to get the black fabric out of your kit. I want to take this off the machine for just a second, but not out of the hoop, just off the machine, so I can place it better. I can see where I'm going with everything. I make sure I've got it plenty covered on both sides, a little bit higher up on top. But now we've got good placement down here. Then I can also see I've got nice placement up at the top. So sometimes you got to take it off the machine to be able to see it, because otherwise it's way up there, very hard to get to. All right, so now let's stitch this down, foot down, and let's tack down the black fabric. Very nice. So now let's take this over to the table and we're going to trim away all this excess fabric. Okay, that trimmed up very nicely. Ready for the next step? All right, so now we're going to do placement lines, which are going to be for the lighter silver to kind of a gray shelf fabric. So I went ahead and put silver thread in the top of the machine for this step, because we're going to stitch out the placement line and then we're going to tack this down. So I want the thread to be matching that. Okay, so let's put the foot down and stitch out the placement line for the shelves. This is coming together. So now let's get the silver or gray fabric out of the kit, if that's what you're using, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that we cover all of the placement lines. Okay, and we've got that. Everything looks good. And a little bit over there. All right, so we are ready to go. So let's go ahead and use your stylus or tape, and let's tack down this fabric. So now we're going to take the hoop off the machine, we're going to take this over to the table, and we're going to trim away this excess fabric. All right, so we've trimmed that up and we're back at the machine. The first thing I want to check at this point is my bobbin thread. Now, my machine will give me a warning when I get low, but I can visually see that I am getting really low. And the next step is going to be kind of lengthy. It's about 7 minutes. That's not enough to get through that. And so, again, when it comes to satin stitches, I like to have a new bobbin in my machine when I start to do satin stitches, because I like to have it do the stitches continuously. I don't like to have it being broken up. So when it comes to satin stitches, I will check my bobbin. Good habit to get into before you do a lengthy stitch out. This one's going to be 7 minutes. So make sure you've got enough bobbin thread on the bottom to get through this, okay? So I chose to put a gold thread in the top. You could do like a golden brown thread up on top because we're going to stitch the bottom of the shelves. Each one of these shelves is going to get a stitch out in satin stitches of a golden thread or a golden brown. So go ahead and put that thread up on top. Let's put the foot down. Actually, I got to thread the needle first. Ha! All right, so we're down, over and up. Then we can put the foot down. Make sure I don't have a loop. Good. All right. And let's stitch out the satin stitches for the bottom of the shelves. Here we go. Very nice. Okay, so now let's switch thread and put black up on top, because now we're going to stitch out this spider detail, and the step after that is going to be the black outline of the fabric shelf. So let's go ahead and switch the thread up on top to black. Okay, so black thread's up on top. Let's stitch out the spider. Ew, it's a spider. Alright, now we're getting ready to stitch the outline of the fabric shelf. Definitely double check your bobbin. Make sure that you have a full bobbin down below, because these satin stitches represent a 30-minute stitch out. So you want to make sure that you can get through all this without having any hiccups, okay? So make sure you got the full bobbin, black thread on top, and we're going to fast forward through this, foot down, and let's stitch out the fabric shelf outline. Okay, so I just ran out of black thread. My spool at the top is now empty. So I'm going to show you how to thread the machine and how to back stitch this a few stitches so we can pick off where we left off because we're out of black thread. So I've got black thread on the top of the machine, and this is going to be the same thing that you're going to do if you happen to run out of bobbin thread down below and it would stop stitching. This is the same technique you're going to use for that as well. So I can see I caught it pretty quickly, all right? So it only missed a few stitches, but I'm going to go ahead and go back a few more so that I can definitely catch it up and continue on. All right, so let's go to the screen camera. There we go. Okay, so I happen to be on that screen, but let me go back and show you. There's a button down here that's plus and minus stitches. That's going to be where you want to go. So you click that, and now you have the opportunity to either go forward in stitches or go backwards in stitches. And I want to go backwards. So I'm literally just going to hit this by ones, or maybe even just do a 10 and go back 10. Let me take you to the screen, the hoop cam, so you can see what it's going to do. I'm going to go back in ones, and you can see it's doing the satin stitches here as it's going back. Actually, yeah, so it had gone further. It had gone all the way up here. I hadn't realized that. So let's go, whoops, let's go back a few more. Let's go back another 10. Yeah, so now I'm going to be approximately right here. So it'll pick up, it'll continue on, and it'll go back up. So now we can continue on, and we're going to put the foot down. It's going to continue to stitch back. So it's about here, back to here. So we are good to go. But that's what you do if you run out of thread or run out of bobbin thread. You use your machine and go back 10 to 20 stitches at least to pick up where you left off. Okay? So let's keep going. Okay, and I found out I just made a mistake. All right, so we're going to fix this while we still can. The instructions did not show us cutting this out. Remember, I said specifically that we're just cutting the outside edge. Well, if you look here, and let me show you, as I was looking ahead as to what machine was going to do, I realized that there is a gap between here, this shelf, and a gap between this shelf, and a little gap between this shelf. And I'm looking at what it's going to stitch. It's not going to fill that in. So the instructions when we trimmed off, let me go back to the hoop. When we trimmed this off, it did not show cutting in between. It showed cutting at the bottom and cutting off the side. But in reality, we have to trim this fabric away here because we want black to show underneath. Okay, if you look at the instructions on page 19, there is black fabric showing here, here, and here. So I stopped the satin stitch process right at this top here. So I'm not in the middle of a satin stitch. It still has to go here, But once it does here, it's going to branch down into here. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to take this over to the table and I'm going to gently trim away here and trim away here along this edge and along this edge and this edge and this edge. I apologize for that, but I was looking at the instructions too and it only showed a cut here and a cut here. So I did not catch that at that point in time. So luckily we caught it now before we start stitching this. So go ahead and take this over to the table and watch me as we trim this, this, and this out. So we have black showing in between. Then we'll come back and we'll continue stitching, and then it's going to come back and do an outline border satin stitch around these edges, and we'll have black showing. All right, so good thing we caught it when we did, huh? So I'm going to trim my thread to stop the process. Okay, I'm going to put the foot is up, and let's take this over to the table. All right, we are back at the machine. So now we're going to do the same thing that I showed you just a few minutes ago on the screen. We're going to go back in time. Let's just do 20 stitches. 1, 2. And that, I think, will give us a good starting spot. Yes, right here. So it'll pick back up and start stitching again. And we will be good. So when we get down here, we're good. So, yay! See, things like this are always going to happen. You're going to make a mistake, or you're going to have to back up, or you run out of thread, you run out of bobbin thread, the needle breaks. So it's always good to know how to go back and forth, forward and back on your machine, the stitches to pick that up. So I hope that helps you on a daily basis, because stuff like this is going to happen all the time when we're doing machine embroidery, and I always include my boo-boos because it's something that's going to happen to everyone. So let's continue on. We still got black thread up on top. You ready to go? All right, let's continue on. Nice. Okay, that was a lot of work, huh? All right, we've got some straggler threads. Not a problem. I'm going to trim these up at the top. It's going to do that one next. We have a few silver ones over here. I'm going to deal with this when we get over to the table. If we can't trim away all of that silver, I've got a little trick to show you if a thread pops out that you can't trim super close. I got a little trick I'll show you at the end as to how to cover that up. But we saved it. Isn't that right? We saved it. Luckily, we caught it up here before we got here as to, wait a minute. You got to trim in between those blocks as well. The instructions are a tiny bit confusing at that stage because it only shows the trim here and the trim here. But luckily we caught it, so this way the black fabric now is showing between those shelves. So we did it! See, mistakes happen all the time. It's okay. Alright, so let's put a silver or a gray thread, I think I'm going to go silver, in the top of the machine. And we're going to stitch out the molding. That's what it's called. I was like, what is the word for that? We're going to stitch out the molding on the top of the shelf. All right, you ready? Let's stitch out the molding. Silver thread up on top, foot down, and away we go. Looking good. All right, so now let's put white thread in the top of the machine because we're going to stitch out some detail on a thread spool. Then the next stitch will also be white when we stitch out the spider web. So let's put white thread on the top of the machine. Okay, let's stitch out the thread spool detail. Okay, it's traveled all the way down to the spider web, so let's put the foot down, white thread still on top, stitch out the spider web. Spooky. Okay, now let's put a fun green thread. I've chosen this one in the top of the machine because we're going to stitch out a jelly roll and some fat quarters. Okay, green's on top, foot down, and let's stitch out the jelly roll. Isn't that cute? All right, so now they have in the book putting white thread up on top for a jelly roll accent and white fat quarters. But you know what? I'm going to switch this up a little bit. Let's see. We don't have to do white. Why don't we do a fun orange as the accent? Or purple? No. Or lavender? No, let's do orange. I'm going to make my jelly roll green and orange. Okay, let's put whatever color thread you choose in the top of the machine. There you go. So I put my orange thread on top. You can do whatever thread you want. Just change it up. make it your own a little bit, okay? Artistic license. Let's put the foot down and let's stitch this out. Really coming together nicely. All right, now I put pink thread on top of the machine. This is the pinky lavender thread that I actually used on one of the witch's outfits. I think it was her corset. So it'll go with the whole theme, and I love the pink. But it's like a pinky lavender. So I put that thread up on top, and now we're going to just do fat quarters. So pick a thread of your choice. It could be Halloween related. It could not. Just pick whatever you like, because it's just going to be fat quarters. So choose your favorite color and put it on top, and let's stitch out some more fat quarters. Okay, you see this little hiccup right there? It's a little hiccup in the stitching when it was doing this fat quarter. I'm going to go back and redo this fat quarter, and I'm not even going to take these stitches out. I'm just going to have it go on top of this. So it'll stand out a little more three-dimensional. I think that'll be kind of cool, but I don't like the fact that that thread is there, and I don't want to cut it because it's still tied to all those stitches. So let's go to the screen and let me walk you through how to get back there. Okay, so it's already progressed to the next stitch. Well, I need to back it up one. So up arrow, backed it up. All right, so now I'm going to move forward because it's going to assume that I want to stitch the first fat quarter. So I'm just going to go back, and I'll show you here. See, so that's the start of that first fat quarter. Now, I'm just going to keep hitting this button here, the +10, until I get to the start of the next fat quarter. Close. Now I'm going to go up one. There we go. I'm at the start of that fat quarter. So I'm going to restitch just this fat quarter. And when it gets to this end and it goes to the next one, I'm going to stop the machine. Okay, so let's go ahead and restitch over this fat quarter. Stop. See, and then foot up. See how nice that is now? See, it covered that boo-boo, and it kind of looks a little bit taller, but it kind of looks, you know how sometimes fat quarters are not exactly even? It kind of gives that look a little bit. I like that. All right, so now, go back to the dream screen. Now I need to get to the next step, because I don't want to continue on with this one. I want to move to the next. So I hit the down arrow, and it automatically goes to the very first stitch of the next step. So we're ready to go. How about that? All right, so let's go back to the hoop cam. And now I'm going to put purple thread on top, and we're going to stitch out some more fat quarters. I put purple thread on top, foot down, and let's stitch them out. Okay, we are on the last stitch. So pick another color of thread that you like for more fat quarters. I've gone kind of with a teal aqua blue. I think that would be pretty. And let's go ahead and put the foot down and stitch out the last set of fat quarters. All right, we are done. You did it. I love that orange on the daily roll. I think that pops really nicely. Isn't that fun? So fun. You did it. Okay, now let's take this hoop over to the table and let's finish up this block. Isn't this super cute? Okay, check it for some stray threads, and then I want you to get a piece of tape and come through here and see if you can get any and all straggler little pieces of white or anything that might be here as we go through. And you can see there's a couple here from when we did a trim that are still white, but I can't really go much closer because I don't want to snip the black. Okay, so run tape over it again. Make sure I got all the little pieces off of it that I possibly can. Okay, so there's a couple stragglers over here that are black. We can get that one. Okay, so here's my little trick. You've got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 little pieces there that are white or the silver fabric thread from underneath. There's a way to fix that. And let me show you my magic trick that should be in every embroiderer's toolbox. Okay, let's put this aside. This is the ultimate collection of Sharpie pens. This is like Crayola crayons, but Sharpie pens in a box. This I actually got on Amazon. You can find it very quickly by just looking for Sharpie and the Ultimate Collection. There's 72 markers in here. So you get 32 fine, 29 ultra fine, and some neons and metallics. The main thing is you want fine point when it comes to embroidery, because you want to be able to pinpoint with either the fine or the ultra fine exactly teeny tiny little spots that you need to cover up on your embroidery. You don't want the big, chisel points, because you're not going to have control over the pen and the area that it covers. So this, to me, should be in every embroiderer's toolbox. Because you open this, whoa, look at all the color pens we have. Again, these are the fine and the ultra fine ones. So I have a very nice point. And see, this one is going to be your standard fine for Sharpie. And this black is your ultra fine. And that's what we're going to use on this one. Either one will work, but look at all these colors. So most of the time, something that you embroider, there's going to be a color thread in this collection to match it. And that's why I call this the Ultimate Collection, not just because they call it that. I do, because literally no matter what color I'm stitching with, there's going to be one that's very close to it or exact that I can blend in to hide any flaws that happen to pop up in my embroidery. All right, so based on that, I'm going to take the fine point on this one, because this one's really, really just tiny, and I'm just covering up literally the width of a thread. See how that happens? Just boom, and I got one little one right there. Done. It's instant. The white is gone, and it's the super fine point, so it's basically, like I said, the width of a thread. And then back in my crayon collection it goes. Isn't this the best thing ever? If you can get this, I highly recommend shopping on Amazon to get you your own embroidery Sharpie Ultimate Collection. The best investment ever right there. All right, so look at that. Now we are perfect. Have everything covered up. It's beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the hoop off, or take the block out of the hoop, or take the hoop off the block. All right, so let's put that aside. So now we're going to square this up. Okay, this is the last thing we have to do. So this block, if I measure on my ruler, it's supposed to be squared up to 6.5 by 10.5. So I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 is the stitch line. I come through here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and a half. So again, these stitch lines, which is the tack down for the fabric, becomes your trim up line. It's the most brilliant thing, and I love that Kimberbell has done that because it makes it easier. So I have a motto. When I go to trim up with a regular ruler, which is what we're going to do this time, you are going to look for that stitch line. Do you see the stitch line? Yes. Then you're good to cut. Do you see the stitch line? No, not good to cut. Okay. So I see the stitch line. The first one is easy because all I'm going to do is go to that stitch line, line it up, and then go just a smidgen, a smidgy as I call it, to the left, and we're going to cut. Do I see the stitch line? Yes. Rotary cutter down, pull the ruler down, and then we cut. Trim off the rest of my stabilizer down here. It's a little long. All right, there we go. First side's easy, okay? The second side we're going to measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a half. Takes me right to that stitch line. I line up my ruler with the cutting mat. I'm at 6 and a half. Hold it down. Do I see the stitch line? Yes, the stitch line is just underneath that ruler. So now I can hold it down and then very gently trim. Okay. There we go. Yay, we got the two sides done. Okay, now I'm going to come over here. Again, the first one's easy, top to bottom. This is 10 and a half. So I go to the stitch line and I go just a smidgy to the left. I see the stitch line. Yes. I can trim. Okay. Second one, we're going to measure it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and a half. I line up with the cutting mat, my ruler, making sure everything's good over there. Okay, do I see the stitch line? Yes, it is just underneath that ruler. See the stitch line? I can cut. And look! You have an amazing block finished. That fabric shelf is amazing. I love how it turned out. I love the colors. I think that jelly roll is just awesome. Okay, isn't that cute? So you've only got one more of these large blocks to do, and that's going to be the quilt shop. We're saving the best for last. That one has a lot of stitch steps in it, but you can do it. Okay, so that block is what we're going to be covering in the next video, is the quilt shop block. Then we're almost done. So isn't that adorable? I love it. So I hope you had as much fun today stitching out this block as I did, and I hope you come back again next time here on Jolly Molly TV, where we work on the last big block, which is that quilt shop. And then we only had a few more steps to go, and then we'll be able to put this whole thing together. So I hope you have fun the rest of your day, and I'll see you soon here on Jolly Molly TV. Take care. Bye-bye.